Welcome to Tutorial 4. In this tutorial, we will create blockchain-powered microservices. The goal is to create portable microservices that give our application a series of independently deployable features. We create these with JavaScript files that will interact with our smart contracts on the blockchain using the Link JavaScript SDK. Let's begin by taking a look at what microservices we need. First, we need a payments service. The payments microservice controls the transfer of funds from a purchaser to a seller when a product is bought. Looking into some of the details, the payment microservice executes transfers of a custom token which we created in an earlier tutorial and held by a treasury. When products are purchased, tokens are transferred between the appropriate wallets. These custom tokens are used instead of the typical credit card. Next is the purchasing service. The purchase microservice controls the creation and storage of products, including the details of those products, changes to the product inventory, and records when products are bought and by whom. And finally, the comments service. The comments microservice records and retrieves customer comments for a particular product. Throughout this tutorial, we will be using environment variables when interacting with your Link APIs. Recall, in the previous tutorial, we used basic Node scripts to interact with our purchasing smart contract. In these scripts, we copied and pasted the required client ID and client secret directly into our script. However, in creating our microservices, we will be using environment variables to protect our client ID and secret from the public and from being stored in version control. Before we move on, let's set up some environment variables in a .env file. In your project, create a new file and name it .env. You can use the template that we've provided to set up each variable. Next, you want to add your .env to your .getignore, like this. In your .env file, you can store your client IDs and client secrets for each microservice. So for example, for the purchasing smart contract APIs, you may have something like this. What you want to do is go through each of your smart contracts that are stored on Link and fill in the appropriate client ID and client secret. Then in your script file, you can use the environment variables like this. Now with that out of the way, let's get on to building portable microservices. Each microservice is constructed using JavaScript. Let's begin with the payments service. First, we need to set up the SDK, which is going to look something like this. Next, we need two functions, which will check the balance of a user's wallet to ensure that the customer has enough money in their wallet to make the purchase when they're checking out, and to transfer funds from the customer to the producer when a purchase is made. These two functions will look something like this. We have the balance of function and the transfer from function within the payments service object. In the balance of, we are doing a GET request to the balance of API endpoint, and in the transfer from, we are doing a POST request to the transfer from API endpoint. Finally, we export our payment service as a module that can be used elsewhere. Next, let's take a look at the purchase service. The following purchasing microservice setup code should be very familiar at this point, if not identical to the script we built in the previous tutorial. First, we begin by setting up the SDK using our new .env file to get each value, like this. Next, we need to add a function that will allow the creation of new products. In the add product function, we create an object with all the product details and use the Link SDK to send a POST request to store those details. That will end up looking like this, where we have the rec body, all the product details you can see here, including product, the ad quantity, the URL, the description, the price, the company, and the ID, and those are all being passed in through the POST request. We also need a function that will be called when a product is purchased. This function records which product is purchased and by whom. This function has a very similar structure to the last function, where we have the rec body, but with this time only two details, the product and the purchaser, being recorded to the post request. And finally, we want to be able to retrieve all the products that we stored on the blockchain using the getProducts function. Using the getProducts function, we can retrieve an array of products and information about these products. And to verify that a product has been purchased by a set user, we use the getPurchasers function. Finally, we export our purchasing service as a module that can be used elsewhere. Last but not least, let's take a look at the comments service. First, we set up the SDK like we did previously with the .env comment client ID and .env comment client secret. And this one's very simple. There's only two functions that we're going to be writing within the comments service. That is, making a post request to store a comment about a specific product and making a get request to retrieve all the comments. And that's it for our 3 microservices. Each represents a simple service containing a few key functions that our front-end application can now use. In the next and final tutorial, we will tie all of it together and run our e-commerce marketplace app.